So last time, which was a few weeks ago, but we did talk about like the more of the halachic aspects of the Omer, of counting, of how we count days and weeks and that sort of thing. So this week we'll look at the Sifsei Chaim and try to understand a little bit more about what is the Omer doing, like what is the meaning behind the Omer, what's the machshava behind it, why this time of year, what are we supposed to be learning from that piece of it. So he says Belel Seder, so he's starting all the way back from Pesach time. He says Belel Seder anu lomdim es nisei Hashem agdoli v'agluyim v'yata ru'im anu lilmod es hanisim shel chaye yom yom lagalos es hester shabito chateva. He says when it comes back, when we go back to Seder night, we're really looking broadly at all of the great open miracles that we saw right throughout the Yasser Makos, and then through Kriyas Yamsuf. He says, but now once we step past the Seder, we start to look at what about the miracles that happen on a daily basis, the more mundane miracles that happen through what we call nature, right? So l'macharas haPesach melamedes osanu haTorah lahakir es Hashem betoch hateva, and that's the day after Pesach is teaching us exactly that, to recognize what's going on behind teva. So ayadei kiyum mitzvahs haomer. How do we do this? Through the Omer. V'kach amru Chazal. So the Medrash says, Amar Rabbi Yanai bit noheg sheva olam adam lokech litra acha shel basar min hashuk kamen yegiu su yiga yoga kama tzarhu mitzar ad shebishla v'abrius yishanim al mitosehem HaKadosh Baruch Hu mashiv ruchos umale anonim umegadal tzmechim medashen as a peros einosin lo ela schar haomer. Right, so the Medrash says that we go to the shuk and we pick up, maybe we pick up a side of meat or whatever else it is, and we think that to ourselves, like, this is, the effort that we have to go now, we have to cook it, we have to deal with it. But while we're sleeping, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is creating the weather patterns, that is making sure that all of the grasses are growing and that the animals are feeding on, and that the fruits and vegetables are growing correctly. And what do? What's our responsibility to thanking Hashem? So the Medrash says we get schar for bringing the Omer, for bringing that first barley, the first produce of barley on the second day of Pesach. How to kosav havesem es haomer reishis ketzircham el kohen. Right, that's what the pasuk tells us, that we have to bring this Omer, the reishis ketzircham, the first of that crop, to the Kohen. Right, so that we don't fall into the trap of thinking that it's only the strength of my arm is what caused me to be able to reap the produce. You shouldn't think that I plowed and I seeded and now I'm reaping. So it's me that grew this crop. Right, all of our sustenance is coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How is this limud? Because we give that first portion, which is really the most precious to us, because that's the first thing that comes out, right? That bears fruit. And that's how we're able to be moda and to thank Hashem for it. And the idea is that this connects us, right? We only give the first part, but it connects us to the rest of the crop, that the entirety of the crop we should have that intention, even though we're giving only the first portion to the Kohen. I'll call it miskadesh, and everything else is also is kedusha from this, is miskadesh through this process. But b'sfas emes, hisbirsha ketotza minasinas hareshis lakadosh baruch hu nimshach barachu devekus Hashem yisbarach aidei afrashas hareshis ad sofo v'chiach reshiso al sofo sha'anu makirim akol shahakol hu me'Hashem. That's what the Sfas Emes explains. That through doing this, through bringing the Omer, that the bracha of that mitzvah is nimshach, continues all the way through, the entire rest of the season, of the growing season and the reaping season. So Tani Rebi Akiva, Shava Shabbosos Tmimos Tihiena. So now he's taking this a little bit further. So we know the pasuk, we saw this last time, says 7 complete weeks you'll have. Emasayhen Tamimos. When are they? When are these weeks Tamimos? Bizman sheYisrael osin Ratzono shel makom. When we do the Ratzono shel makom, when we do God's will, then it is Tamimos. That's another medrash. Vayikra Utmimos hasvira hi shleimus ha'adam im HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Tamimos means that we are shalom, that we're complete with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's batlu so Ratzono, that we are able to sort of put aside our wishes for Hashem's wishes. Chazal bi'ar lanu ki hamila tamimus einamis yacheses leminin sheva shabbosos bilvad. So he explains that Chazal is telling us something very deep here, that the sheva shabbosos isn't just meaning that, okay, when we count, we're supposed to count 7 complete weeks. Yes, that's true, but it's not the only thing. It's telling us elegam biyachas la'adam hamona, even those who are counting, ki alav la'asos tamim, we have to be pure or complete, shalim b'masav, complete in our actions. Ve'emasai ayadeshem mevato es ritzono l'ritzono Hashem. That's ritzono, that she'osim ritzono shamakom. That's when we are. That's when we have tamimus. So Chazal shamshu b'tor makom Hashem yisbarach. So now. So that's one piece of it. So what the Siksechem is doing is now sort of really taking a closer look at this. Sorry, let me just move to here. Taking a closer look at this Maimer Chazal. So if we look at Emasai Hein Tamimus Bizman Sheisra Osin Ratzono Shomakom. So Tamimus means that it's not just that we're counting, but it means that we ourselves, through our actions, can be tamim with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But what does it mean, Osin Ratzono Shomakom? So he says that Chazar him shamshu b'tor makom l'shem yisbarach. Why do we say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is makom, the place? V'chein b'makomos acherim shemuskar rotzon Hashem nichtav makom abir lefi Amram Zal. So he's going to bring in another Maimer Chazal from Bereshis Rabbah. Mipnei ma mechanin shemo HaKadosh Baruch Hu according also makom. Why do we give the nickname to HaKadosh Baruch Hu of makom? Shehu makomo shel olam ve'ino olamo makomo, because his place is the world and the world is not his place. Right? What does that mean? So makom elasha mekayim. He says, what does makom mean? To be mekayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu ha-mekayim is kol habriya. Ein ha'olam siba chas v'shon lakim HaKadosh Baruch Hu gim lehefech. HaKadosh Baruch Hu siba lakim ha'olam. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who keeps the entire world functioning and going and living and such. Makom mitzayin is ha'akara she'mitzius habriya hi achas ritzon Hashem. That the term makom is telling us that, and helping us to understand and to realize that the whole purpose of the bria is only for one reason, and that's that we should be doing the will of Hashem. Kaisher makirin she'ein shum mitzius bebria mevad ritzon Hashem ki chayim b'ritzono kol chayinu tuluyim ach v'rak b'ratzon Hashem. And so too, our life is really sort of hanging on only on Ratzon Hashem. That we have a purpose in this world as long as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Kasher Adam zoche lahagia lahakara zu az be'efsharuso levato as kol ritzonosav hapratim latosam shetiena zuhus el Ratzon Hashem zayikare osa Ratzono Shomakom. So what does it mean that we're osa Ratzono Shomakom? That's when we are zoche to understand this, and then to be able to say, you know what, I have my wishes, desires, whatever, but sometimes I put them aside because that's not what I need to be doing at this moment. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has other requirements, or has mitzvahs, or other things that I'm supposed to be doing. And by doing that, that is what is tamimus. Hashlemus Hashem, that we are shalom with Hashem. And he brings in the note that Tamim Tihiu Im Hashem, the pasuk in Dvarim, that we should be Tamim Tihia Im Hashem, we should be Tamim with Hashem. That's sort of this idea as well. But we're going to keep going weiter because there's more to see here. So Bimei Katzer Hamaschilim B'Tkufas Pesach Olu Adam Lahargish as Atzno Mevusas Charashtiv is the Rativ Achshav Ani Kotzer Gidautis Tvua Vahosisi Yuvorav. Right, that the time period of Pesach is when we as at least as farmers would be starting to see the reaping, right, all of our hard work over the course of the season, and we would think that it is our, again, going back to what you're saying, that it was really our activities that caused that. Right? How great, I was able to work hard and I was able to achieve this. Okay, and hitila haTorah davka b'yamim elu levases is akara ki HaKadosh Baruch Hu ha'mekomo shel olam v'chol kiyumenu tluy bo. And that's why this is why at this time, this is why we have this mitzvah of bringing the omer, to be able to recognize, wait a second, really it's Hashem. He is Mekayim everything. He's the one who who gave us a good growing season and allowed the crops to grow as they did. And the whole purpose of the Bria is for us to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is what this mitzvah Sefiras haomer is about, that it is bringing us to Kabbalas Torah, which is, again, that's the essence of how we know what is Ratzon Hashem, what are we supposed to be doing, and that we get from Kabbalas Torah. Lahakir ki lo kochi asi li es achayo hazeh ella hakol mimeni yisbarach. Hu hazon mefarnis umeoso hakol. Suras hanefes haomer hanofes haomer afi lamala lamata l'arba ruchos hashemayim lahachdir hakarash HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekom shalom. And he says that's the idea, that when we go, right, we do the tnufa on the omer, that we wave it around the 4 directions and then up and down the 6 directions. That's what we're saying, is that all of this is what's the song? Hashem is truly everywhere, right? That's what we're sort of hearkening to. Right? And that's how the Sefira ends, is that we bring Bikurim on Shavuos, which is, again, sort of that same idea, that we're bringing the first fruits, not just the barley, but the first fruits, and it culminates the whole Sefira period. And on top of that, we have a really direct connection between the mitzvah of Bikurim and Yitzias Mitzrayim. Haggadah Pesach b'nuya b'ikra al parshas Armei Ovid Avi. Right, the big, sort of according to the Rambam and others, the main part of the Haggadah is when we start to say Arami Ovid Avi, and what's that? That's the parsha that we say when we bring the Bikurim. And then Meres behavasa Bikurim. Mishem Misupar al Ishtashlos Yitziras Am Yisrael Hachel Me Ovdi Avodah Zarah Hayo Vosinu Derech Galus Mitzrayim Ad Bon LaEretz Yisrael. This is what's the essence of this, of these psukim are telling our story of how we started off as Ovdi Avodah Zarah, and then, but it ends with the Galus Mitzrayim, and then until we come to Eretz Yisrael. It's the whole history. But it all comes from Hashem Yisbarach. Asher nasata li Hashem. Hakara ha'shakol mimenu Yisbarach. Zu hasiva mitzvahs bikurim shmivim as a pri harishon Hashem. The harus azos papoa. So we take this idea, but we put it into action by actually bringing the bikurim and actually reciting this, and that's what sort of brings it into something that's more real for us. And that's why every year, right, every growing season, every year, we do the same thing. We bring the omer. Right? That's in order to, sort of build this inside of us, is compartmentalize it inside of us, that this is what is sustaining us. And that's so too on Leil Pesach, the Seder. The idea is that we have to re-energize that hakara, that recognition from the beginning, that everything's from Hashem, Mitzvah Omer matarasa afi l'shem kach, and so too that's what the mitzvah of the Omer is. Lahachir banu as ha'amuna ha'ba'akar sha'akol mimenu yizbarach v'zehu ha'kesher shebein yemei ha'omer lePesach, and that's the connection between the days of the Omer and Pesach. Hemshech yeshal ha'karas mitoch nes nigla lahakir as a nes anistar, that we take this that we go from this revealed miracle to understanding and realizing that so too the hidden miracles are also just as coming from Hashem as well as the revealed ones. Okay, I'm going to skip down a little bit, and we're going to go into the connection now. So now that we understand Sefiras Omer a little bit more with Machshava, but how does this connect to the Misa of the Talmidim of Rebi Akiva? Like, why does this become a little bit of a velus going on at the same period of time? Like, why was it this period that they had to die? So Yemim Shebin Pesach Latzeres Nikram Yemei Kedusha v'Hachona. So as we were saying before, that the days between Pesach and Shavuos are days of Kedusha and Hachana. Kach Omer HaRamban ala Pasuk B'Yom HaShmini Mikra Kodesh Atzeresi. So the Ramban says on the pasuk, when it says that the B'Yom HaShmini Mikra Kodesh, right? This is talking about the end of Sukkot, right, where we have Shmini Atzeres, and that is also going to be a Yantif, but it's Atzeres. B'tziva b'chag Matzos umana mimenu tisha v'arba miyom shiva shavuos kimei olam v'kadosh yom Shmini k'Shmini shochag v'yamim hasipurim bintayim k'chol hashamoed ben arishon v'ashmini b'chag hu yom matan Torah sheherem bo es isha gedola v'dvarav shamu mitoch haish. So the Ramban says that he's connecting the two Yom Tovim, just like on Sukkot. So we go 8 days, and then we have Shmini Atzeres, which is a new Chag. So too, that we have Pesach, and then 7 weeks later, and then as it's starting the 8th week, that becomes also, it's an 8, and that becomes Atzeres, which is Shavuos. And therefore, the days of the Omer are like a very elongated Chol HaMoed. That's why Chazal refer to Shavuos as Atzeres, kihu kiyom shmini shochag shekaru hakosav kain. So too, just like Shmini Atzeres is also referred to as Atzeres. Midvarav. So from these words of the Ramban, Lamanu ki hayamim sheme Pesach ve'ad Shavuos ma'avim chativa achas. Right, this is all one chunk. It's not 7 long weeks that are separating, but it's one big chunk. Kasher hayom harishon v'achron heim yom tovim, and the bookends of it are yontif. V'kol shavua shebein tayim hu keneged yom echad shel chol moed. And so every week is keneged a day of chol moed. Hakesher shelahem im hapesach hu bekach shem tzrichim lahachdir levases es hakor shekibanu b'mitzvos Yisraelim uba bevad lehischonein imam likras yom kabbalas haTorah. Right, this is all feeding up to kabbalas haTorah. Mi'idach anu motzim shebeyomim elu nogim min hagi avelus almost Tomnei Rebi Akiva. Now, at the same time, we also know that in these days that we have the minhag of avelus because of the deaths of the students of Rebi Akiva. So vare lo mikrahu shebeyamim kadoshim elu yimei simcha v'hachona likras kabbalas haTorah mezu Tomnei Rebi Akiva. It can't just be happenstance that the two are coming together, that we're preparing for Kabbalas haTorah, and also all these students of Rebi Akiva are dying. A little lahavin as a kesher bein hadvar. So we have to understand what really is going on. So to me, about Nilmad as his yachzus chazal almost Tomnei Rebi Akiva b'mei haomer amar shneim asor elef zugim talmidim hayu lo Rebi Akiva megivasad antifaras v'kulan mesu beperik echad mipnei shelo nagu kavod zelazeh v'haya haolam shamem sheshtachacha Torah according to Rashi ad sheba Rebi Akiva eitzer basinu shebedarim v'shana lehem Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua inim hamidu Torah osa shah. So this is the Gemara in Yefamos. It tells us that there were 12,000 pairs, right, chavrusas, that Rebi Akiva that died all in one period of time, until then Rebi Akiva had to go down to the south and find 5 new Talmidim and that he could teach to, that they sort of became, right, stood up and became the Torah for that time period. So yesh lahavin v'chein mipnei shelo nagu kavod zelazed nigzar leim onesh kach haomer. Like, well, what does that mean? That they weren't nice to each other? What? And therefore they got this horrible onesh, this punishment. Until the Chazal say that the world was shamim. It was empty. It was void. It was quiet. Why? Zos ve'od harei Chazal madgishim shel Rebi Akiva hayu 12,000 zugos tamidim v'lo 24,000 tamidim boderdim. Why 12,000 zugos? Why not 24,000? Like, what are the Chazal trying to tell us by that? Lamdenu shahatzlachasim b'Torah hi echad mekoach hasheni. That is coming to teach us that to be matzlich in learning Torah, you need that's the koach of learning in bechavru. So you need that second person. And that's what's coming to tell us, that this idea of being able to be nohe kavod with your chavrusa. So we'll have to dig into that further. So Ne'amar b'medrash. So another medrash says, or another Ma'amar Chazal says, Amar lehem Rebi Akiva, B'nai harishonim lo meisu ele shahaisa einehim tzara elu le'elu. So when he went to the south and he found those 5 new Talmidim, these Rebbe's, to become, to stand up Torah at the time, what did he tell them? He said, don't do like the first ones did, like my first students did, because they died. Why? Because they had saras ayin for each other. So tanu darchem shelo tasu k'maasehem. So don't do like that. Amdu umalu es kol ha'aretz Torah. They didn't, and they were able to fill the world with Torah. So Rebi Akiva amar letalmidim achashdoshim chavrechem hayu tzari ayin zelazeh limdu memar shekara shelo ta'asuk maasehem yizhirim mipnei tzaras ayin. But tzarich lahavi madua lo yizhirim sheyechlaku kavod zelazeh. So why did Rebi Akiva say to them, don't have tzaras ayin? Why didn't he use the same language as the Gemara said, which is that, and say to them, be sure that you are nohe kavod zelazeh, right? Be kavodik to each other. So he says, Shemat mipi Maran Rav Ponovich Zatzal, right? He says he learned from the Ponovich Rav. Shabir at the Devarim B'derech Zu Gemara B'Yavamos Mitzayenes as Ha'Maiser Ha'Shlishi Ha'Shalili Shalem Shalo Nagu Kavod Zelazeh. That was sort of secondary. V'ilu Rebi Akiva Gila LaTamidim Shagarim Shalo Kibdu Zelazeh Hu Tzaras Ayin. So what was the cause of them not being kavodik to each other? That was tzaras ayin. So he was just talking about directly what was the root cause of the problem. So zivish l'onish chamur, and that was the reason for such a horrible onish. Now penei hashetach ru shalo kivdu echod es hasheni kafi orcho. They were not treating each other according to really what the value of the other person brought. Miato be Chashivas or Shohashini, Valo Yadu as a Garam Lakachra, Bekiva Gila, Shagarim Lano, Nova Mitzaras Ayin. But how does all this come about? It comes about through Tzaras Ayin, and that's what Rebi Akiva is revealing to us. Tzaras Ayin Perusho, Mefargent Nisht Yenem, Lo Yecholim Lizbal Shalasheni Tov, means that you're not able to accept that the other person has something of value to bring. Choshashim Shema Hu Lokech Memashem Yagiali. Right, that they're concerned that the other person's going to take what I should be getting. Right, I'm happy that he gets something, but he shouldn't get as much as I did. This is what I deserve, and that's the tzaras ayin that he says. Ki kol man chashim es hasheni k'mi shemischara v'nogas mechalki. He's taking my portion. That's tzaras ayin. Tzaras ayin inenu rak mida shlili. So bogemes bechiyuvim shal bein adam lechaveru elahi ngas soseres he gam soseres the memches midas shatora niknis behen. He says something very profound, which is that when we have tzaras ayin, that is something that isn't just a bad habit or bad midah, but it also completely negates the 48 ways of learning Torah, or that Torah can be nikneh. Hasaba Mekelm, that the Alter Mekelm used to say, HaTorah tzricha beis kibul. That Torah requires like a vessel that gets, that sort of gets poured into. It has to be able to receive the Torah. Adam shetavu gas, but as somebody who is arrogant, Torah inena shochenes bo. Torah cannot live within somebody who is arrogant, who enu matim lihios beis kibul lekabbalas Torah. Im ein lo lev tov enu nose bo'o im chavero v'lo lomed liyaker sasheni. If you don't have that lev tov, if you don't have that right personality, the right midos, you're not going to be able to accept there's a certain yoke of your friend that you have to take on, that they have needs too, and you won't be able to value them and to treat them the way that they should be. Hu anochi, and that's the arrogance of it. Bekach ma'vedhu es erech haTorah ve'ein mesugo lahavos kli lekabbalas Torah. And then you also lose the value of Torah, and you're not able to become this kli that can receive it. Rakmisha shover es tiva, you have to break your own nature. Mizadin and mizdachech, you have to purify yourself. You break those habits. That's the only way to be able to really descend into the depths and understand Torah the way it is. If you're not able to do that, you won't be zoche to really understand Torah, and it's always going to be a problem with the Torah that you learn. So Yiseri Mizos, and we're just about out of time, but we'll see. Let's see here.